Welcome to Code and Concrete, the leading podcast for prop tech, conversations about the built environment, and other exciting innovations. If you learn something new, please consider following and leaving a positive review. Enjoy. Hi folks, welcome back. Joining me today, I have Mandy McGill. Mandy is the founder of Decentralized Everything, and she is a fintech certified blockchain educator who is rapidly building authority as a content creator, posting daily on TikTok, where she demystifies real-world asset tokenization and decentralized finance for real estate professionals. With over 15 years advising Fortune 500 clients, including Amazon, Microsoft, Clark Construction, and CBRE, Mandy brings real-world credibility to emerging technologies. As founder of, and you'll know how to pronounce this company name, Mandy. How do I say this?
It's Idifico.
Idifico
Yes.
AI.
Yes.
Wonderful. And the host of Decentralized Everything, Mandy has influenced over $500 million in project value while establishing herself as the authoritative voice bridging traditional CRE and Web3 technologies. Very excited to have you on the show. There's a lot of overlap between your interests and mine, so this is going to be a great conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
So we went over your background a little bit, but I'm very curious about the transition into Web3. When did you first stumble across blockchain, and when did you recognize that it was something valuable?
Yeah, thanks. This is actually kind of a personal story, but I have a teenage daughter, and we were experiencing a lot of negativity on social media, actually. And so I started digging into ways that we can solve for like the monopoly situation that we have with the big companies. And I came upon blockchain as an option for micropayments, and that this would be a way that we could actually remove the monopoly from the situation, and we could have peer-to-peer payments, and then we could pay creators from our own wallets, right? And so that was actually kind of the beginning of how I discovered blockchain. And since I had been working in commercial real estate and the AEC industry, I realized that this technology could greatly impact so many of the layers that we have in that industry. And I was like, oh, if this is like really going to be a thing, then our industry is going to like dramatically change. And so I felt compelled to get my blockchain certificate from the University of Washington, learned how to code, which was so weird and still totally like not my jam, and have been kind of following along ever since. So yeah, I think just the technology alone is just so fascinating, all of the ways that it can work for society.
Certainly. And construction and real estate have more problems than we know what to do with.
Oh my gosh.
So blockchain is this incredible technology that addresses so many issues like data asymmetry or not being able to trust other parties or transactions. And this goes right into the first question that I have about on-chain titles. This is one of the three major use cases that we've seen. There's deeds and titles, as well as investment and capital stack. And then people are also using it in the back office. When we talk about blockchain for titles and land records, what problem is this actually solving for the cities, for the owners, or for other stakeholders?
Yeah. It's a good question. And I think the answer is different depending on who you're talking about, right? So if you're talking about what problem does this solve for cities, say, I think for like public jurisdictions, I think the reality for them is that they don't even realize that there is a problem in the first place, right? Like they're pretty cool, like operating in the same like space that they've always been in. But I think it just makes everything faster when it's digital, right? So you actually don't have to employ as many people to do the work. I mean, and that's true across all stakeholders that you asked about. But, for cities, I think it makes it a lot faster and a smoother kind of transition for I think you said lenders was the other like for lenders, this just speeds up the process as well, because you no longer have, you really don't need a title company. So what this does is it removes that intermediary, and so it removes the cost of having someone have to go back and check and negotiate, where the line is and all of this. Like, none of that needs to take place any longer because it's all digital. I mean, and this is theoretical, right? Like, I mean, it's going to take us some time to get to a place where like everything is on chain. As far as the problem it's solving, it removes that intermediary and makes the transaction kind of immediate. So I hope that answers for you.
Right. For underwriting and reconciliation, it definitely accelerates things. And we know that the actual transfer of ownership of land or property is a very slow process.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
much back and forth, so many different parties that have to sign on the paper somewhere. And
Yep.
not only could it be digitized, which would make it faster, but using a blockchain where you have that immutability. So
Mhm,
looking
mhm.
back or looking across stakeholders, we know that it's the truth. The
That's
information
right.
that we're looking at can be trusted. And that's huge. I've seen use cases here in the US where they're putting titles on chain. I think Bergen County was a recent example.
Yes.
That accelerates transactions and definitely simplifies our ability to oversee billions of dollars worth of land titles. And then in other countries where maybe the system is a little less reliable,
Mm,
putting those land titles on the blockchain is this form of, again, immutability.
that's right.
We don't have to dispute who owns what. So that's right there, just an awesome use case. Surprisingly, it's been one of the slowest use cases in terms of blockchain in real estate.
Mhm,
Well, at least
mhm.
here in the US, because our counties are so fragmented. Like
Mm,
you said,
yeah.
we're going to have 3,200 to work through, and one by one try to get adoption. It's going to take some time.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that the reason that it's not happening is because they're just not educated and they
Hmm.
don't understand it. So I think that's kind of the biggest piece. That's the biggest hurdle that we have to overcome. And actually, I met with Dan Silverman, who is the CEO of Balcony, a couple months ago, and I asked him, like, how did this happen? Like, how is it that Bergen County is kind of like our star child, that we're like looking up to? And I mean, it's basically because he's a developer who understands blockchain and talked to the leadership of that county and said, like, hey, this is how this works, don't you think this is cool? And they were like, yes, we think this is cool, let's do it, right? So I mean, it really kind of it came down to just some education and a personal relationship with someone there, and a trust built between humans, so that they can understand this is how we do this in a trustless way. And I think that's another. It's like it's another thing that we use in crypto, when we say trustless. We're like, this is the end game. This is what we want. And when you say that to someone in CRE, they're like, we don't like trustless. Like, we're all about trust, right? So like, even that definition alone it takes some education to help them understand. No, what trustless means is that we don't, inherently have to trust each other in order to make this happen. And that's a good thing, because humans, we're fallible, and we screw up sometimes, and there are many reasons why we need trustlessness, right?
Certainly. And that's one of the reasons why governing bodies tend to move slower by design.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the local level. Well, I guess government in general, from your experience, where have you seen the most momentum? Is it blockchain for permitting or land records or public infrastructure? There's quite a spectrum here, but where are you seeing the most successful education and adoption of blockchain?
I have to be really honest. Like, I'm not seeing it yet.
Hmm.
I mean, where are you seeing it? I'm curious.
Well, in isolated incidents.
Okay.
Definitely. Well, in regards to real estate, I think that the land titles, where they've been attempted in different
Mhm.
states.
Mhm. Yeah.
They're nice to point to and say that it's some sort of industry adoption, but what I never see are repeat customers.
Right.
I'm never seeing more of that activity, and it never seems to snowball. You would think that if the benefits were outstanding, at least in comparison to the cost to implement, then
Mm.
it would be widespread already. And
Mm.
maybe that's what's holding it back. The technology is expensive, and then you layer on consultants and advisors. And just to add this technology, it becomes a multi-million-dollar experience. Going back to what you said before, for a problem that the governments might not even recognize or fully acknowledge. So
Yeah.
that's an issue. But I will say on the public infrastructure front, there's been more tokenization in the US and around the world because it offers an alternative funding method.
Mm.
And governments are always happy to take a little bit more money.
Sure.
Moving to a different type of use case for blockchain, a lot of conversation has been around fractional ownership. And personally, I like to shift away from fractional ownership because it doesn't really make the best use of blockchain technology. So, what do you think are the traits or characteristics of a serious or successful real estate tokenization structure?
Mm.
What should we be looking for?
Yeah. And I think to your earlier point or question about how, like, why we're not seeing this widespread is really about legislation, right? It's about putting a framework in place for people to understand like how we do this from a legal perspective because it blockchain just raises so many questions. I mean, when you're talking about finance, I mean, that's a really, really sensitive subject for any jurisdiction, right? And so I think, yes, the cost of it is expensive. But I think the real reason that we're not seeing more pilots is because we had, an administration for the last, like previous to our current administration, who was actually doing everything they could to prevent development, right? And so I think it's important to acknowledge that we had 4 solid years of just people coming out of the developers coming out of the space altogether because they're afraid, right? And so I think that's an important piece of why we haven't advanced as quickly as those of us who are familiar with what it can do had hoped. And so why we're so excited about, clarity and so on. But anyway, remind me what your last question was again.
So, if not fractionalization,
Mm,
what are some of the benefits or use cases we should be looking for in
sure.
a tokenized structure or a
Sure.
tokenized structure? Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, so there are different ways that a developer can or owner of real estate can tokenize. They can tokenize their debt, they can tokenize their equity, they can tokenize their cash flow alone, right? So, there are just so many options. And I think when it comes to like what is a serious like tokenization project look like, I think it because we now have even the Genius Act passing was just really helpful for this space because now at least we can use stable coins in this, in this process. And I think just any real estate company that, you just, in order for it to be serious, you still have to hire an attorney who knows what they're doing. And you need to have a developer who understands smart contracts, right? And can implement it. And I think just the seriousness of it is coming because we now have these frameworks and legislation that allows for us to watch this flourish. So, I think that really is what it comes down to is we haven't seen a lot of serious use cases. We've seen great use cases. I don't want to shit on those who have already done this, right? But again, it's just that one-off that we all point to as, hey, this works, right? And we're gonna now see a ton of activity coming down the pipe, I think.
For sure. And hopefully, because for years we've been talking about tokenized debts or DeFi,
Mm.
alternative sources of capital,
Mm-hmm.
essentially.
Yep.
But once the project is on chain, finding buyers is very difficult. One of the big opportunities is that if blockchain is global, then you could have cross-border investment
Yes.
and cross-border interest rates too.
Yes.
But I don't know that we've really seen it. So hopefully with all this legislation and building up confidence in the institutions, more
Yes.
frameworks, more standards, that'll bring on projects, that'll bring on capital, particularly liquidity, so that this can go into these projects that are seeking money.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
And we
people
need it.
just sit in isolation and don't actually move money.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I'm curious, how come you don't love the term fractional real estate? I don't either, but I'm curious what it is for you.
Fractionalization is really enabled by legislation or regulation, I should
Mm.
say.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
the Securities Act is really what created fractionalization. And then under the Obama administration, when the additional investment structures like regulation crowdfunding, or there were enhancements to Regulation D, that's what created the fractionalization that we talk about today,
Hmm.
where you could have 2,000 investors on the cap table or an accredited investor. If you do a Reg A filing, you could, they call it the mini IPO, so you can solicit this, you can advertise it, and people can buy in.
Hmm.
Where I do see benefit being, or blockchain being beneficial to the cap table, is simply operational efficiency.
Yep.
So it's not going to enable the fractionalization, but it might make it a little bit smoother.
Oh, it
Uh,
100% will. Yeah.
right, because smart contracts and the ease of settlement. So I think it's good in that way, but to say that you need blockchain or you need tokenization in order to fractionalize,
Mm.
sometimes it introduces an extra cost, because you can definitely fractionalize without blockchain.
Sure.
It just seems like a big selling point from these platforms.
Mm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. But I think the difference is the smart contract, right? Because I mean, if you're doing like fractional equities or fractional cash flow, like, yeah, just how expensive that is to maintain on a regular basis, but when you have the smart contract in place and it's just automatic and you don't have somebody like managing a PDF, or several somebodies managing PDFs to figure out your fraction of it, and it's all just automatically flows through. It's totally different from like the crowdfunding from many years ago. And many real estate people will look to that and be like, oh, yeah, well, crowdfunding is an old idea, and it's like, well, it's very different when you have blockchain involved. So yeah,
Right,
I'm with
right.
you.
More programmable, more composable. There's
Mhm.
these different attributes, and you were talking about all the different hands that have to essentially touch these certificates, these agreements.
Yeah.
And while some of those parties are still maintained because the government's just not going to throw them away and say,
Uh-huh.
okay, you're on blockchain, you don't need a custody now, at
Right.
least all those parties can be looking at a unified ledger.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
they'll move faster as well. There's there's lots of downstream effects. That's been one of my favorite words recently, is the
Mm.
downstream
Yes.
effects. It's a little bit of jargon, but it's for sure. It's not always about upfront benefit, but over time,
Mm.
what's the aggregate gain that we get out of
Yeah.
this? So, shifting over to construction. I'm very interested about this topic. Anyone who knows me knows that I talk about blockchain in AECO, which is the
Mhm.
architectural, engineering, construction, and then operations as well.
Mm.
But there's few voices in this, so I'm really glad to have you on the show to talk about this. One of the use cases is that you could use smart contracts for construction draws and milestone payments as the project comes along. I don't know if we've seen it implemented yet.
No.
How do you think that we get there?
Oh, I think this is going to be one of those downstream effects, right? We have BlackRock doing what they're doing, right? And so it's out there in the ether. People are kind of talking about this tokenization idea. And then, we're going to start seeing over the next couple of years the just tokenization and AI like coming together. And then you're going to see your big players who are interested in understanding this, networking at a human level with like the big GCs, right? Like, a lot of the bigger ones will implement these kinds of things first, I imagine. That's just kind of the nature of it. And then once the big ones do it, then you're going to have this layer of business that understands how to do this, or we'll have platforms. I don't know exactly how this is going to play out, but I think we're just going to see the rise up of new business ideas and opportunities to implement this with your kind of mid tier and your lower tier GCs and kind of your smaller architects and engineers. Maybe. That said, I also think, like I was saying about, that my meeting previous to this with he's the head of AI and AEC for NVIDIA. Some of those companies in AEC, like some of them are just going to be completely decimated. And I mean, I have good friends who own these firms, right? And I'm like trying to figure out, do I take them to lunch, or do I just let it happen and like watch on the sidelines and cry with them? I don't know. I haven't decided yet. But, as it relates to payments, the ones who, can survive this, what's about to happen, then yeah, I think it's just going to be kind of implemented because the law backs it and the big guys are doing it. And I should say big guys and gals are doing it. And, and then as it comes down, then we'll see, it'll happen eventually. But I think even some of them are not even going to know. It's just going to be like, hey, fill out this thing and you're going to get paid, like that once, the smart contract executes.
Right. They probably won't see the Web3 interface.
Right.
They'll just know that the payments are milestone based or programmatic, or they have to do a certain amount of work. For folks who aren't familiar, it's a big accountability issue. Is what we see. When you have your GCs and all these other parties, the work that's supposed to get done and the timelines that it's supposed to get done on are never aligned. And then someone doesn't want to pay, someone's not getting paid, there's liens, there's all sorts of disputes.
Okay.
And so the idea with smart contracts is you do X work, you get Y reward. And that's sort of like the end of discussion. Now, of course, real estate isn't that black and white, but it could help resolve a lot of disputes. And there's all sorts of tech. We were talking about AI, the cameras that they can put on sites now to see progress and there's the structure, and now we're moving on to the MEP, just step by step, and it will record that and then send it back to a manager for the site. And this could be tied to a smart contract that just says we're 10% done, 10% of the payment is out. A big issue is payments are upfront right now in many cases. I had an architect joke to me that the best design job is the one that he doesn't, or the best design project is the one that never gets started. He's already been paid and he does the architectural and it doesn't have to, nothing has to transpire. That's just not great for real estate.
That's right.
Not great for society in general. So it'd be really good to have more programmatic elements, but like the same reason why it would be useful in the cap table to actually monitor that is so much work. You need software, or else too much overhead, too much time spent tracking little things.
100%.
You also talk about DAOs and tokenized talent marketplaces, which I don't know anything about that. So I just want to ask, like, what is a tokenized talent marketplace? I don't even know. Please.
No, I'll help you understand. So Idifico, which by the way is Latin for I build. And so I'll kind of fill you in on what it is. So are you familiar with Upwork? It's a talent.
I'm going to pretend yes, but for the audience that doesn't know.
Okay. So it's a talent marketplace that a lot of big companies use when they need to do just one specific project. So it's all project-based work, right? And so the talent that knows how to do it, which is often, tech engineers, or it's a lot of marketing. A company like Microsoft will have an agreement with Upwork, and they can kind of plug and play when they need somebody to do a project. Real estate is that, right? Like, we are a very project-based industry. So what if instead of the developer hiring an owner's representative who then gives them five GCs, and they interview the GC and they pick the GC, and then the GC, sometimes the architect is in there too, right? And, so the order in which they're hired is variable, but they then have to pay the company to do the work, not the individual, right? So they've now got themselves involved with 5, 6, 7 different companies. So what if instead of that, they had a place where they could go, they could enter their scope of work, they could be connected with individuals who have experience doing that work, and then they staff their project via individuals who know how to do that. So they can be connected with a construction manager. So they really don't need to hire the owner's rep. Like, I mean, who would I be if I was trying to take out CBRE? But, maybe. and so they can hire their CM, and then their CM can come in, enter all of the scopes of work, and then they have built their project team. Now, how Web3 comes into this is that you now can have a token associated with that project, that every individual who's working on the project has it. So they now have equity in the project itself, via the token. And then when the project eventually cash flows, they get a small portion, like whatever the agreement is, of that for the rest of their lives. When you hire an individual instead of an entire company, that individual could make anywhere between 500 and 1.5 million on one project. Rather, and the client, by the way, is still saving a substantial amount of money. And so this platform, that's what Idifico is. It's the platform in which you enter the scope of work and you're immediately connected with what we're calling currently freelance talent. But as AI continues to take over, we're going to see the outflow of just, I believe, a substantial amount of excellent talent, that companies can no longer support. So this is what Idifico is, and that idea was born like 2.5 years ago. And so I've built the platform. My co-founder and I have built it, and it's currently on pause because I think it was just a little bit before its time.
Right. Timing's super important.
Yeah.
Those of us who have been in this industry for years and years know just how many times we've had to pivot. But I'm very interested in this concept. So what was the story leading up to creating I want to say it right, Idifico?
You got it. Good job.
Perfect.
I know, it takes a little while. Yeah, it takes a little while.
I speak Latin now.
Sorry?
I speak Latin now.
Yeah, yes, you do. I've been told by many VCs that I need to change the name. And I'm like, listen, the amount of money I've put into this name, if you're not going to fund me, I'm not going to change the name if you're not going to fund me. So bye. And a lot of them, they don't really understand Web3 yet, even VCs.
So the background story, though.
Yeah. So a lot of the work that I was doing as an entrepreneur in AEC was I was partnering with really big companies and helping them build teams. And there was a period over COVID where I got a little lonely, and I was like, maybe I'll try being employed. And it was the first time ever. And so I went to work for one of my clients, and I was doing BD for them, and it was terrible. I did it for 6 months, and I was like, oh my God, they want to kill me, and I want to kill them, and it's a bad deal. So I left, and when I jumped back into like building teams for clients, I was meeting with a lot of candidates who were sharing how much they want to jump, how much they want to leave their company, but they're like, how am I going to do business development, live in the weeds of the project? Like, it's kind of impossible to do for someone who is working in AEC. Not impossible, but hard, right? Because, you got to go out there and win the business. And that's really still a personal, like, handshake situation. And so I started thinking about, like, how could I do this but at scale? Like, I'm not going to go like be their BD person, I need to be able to scale this, right? And so that's how it was born, was just through like this idea of, what if I could just technologically connect these people? And then I started thinking through how our industry was built for the Industrial Revolution instead of the the tech revolution. And I'm like, dude, we need to like completely redesign how this industry works. Like, it should be designed around projects, not companies. But so much legal and, and tech has to like kind of happen before we can really embrace that idea fully, I think.
There's a lot of changes and trends in talent right now.
Yeah.
What are some of those trends that you're seeing? Because I know people in AEC who are trying to transform talent as well, new ways of
Mm,
striking up relationships, because, as you said, so much is handshake basis.
hmm
So is that going away? What are some of the trends that you're seeing?
So I don't think it's ever going to go away. But boomers die. I mean, I hate to be blunt, but this is where we're headed, right? So I think that we have such a shortage. We don't have an option to continue down the path of, there has to be a handshake and a trust, a human to human trust any longer. So I do think that we're just, out of necessity, we're moving towards a more digital society, and thus the AEC and CRE are going to have to, like, they're not there yet, but they're eventually they're going to adopt it. And I do know that, just again, out of necessity, we're going to see like really great talent start to try to create their own businesses out of, like, they're going to have to. And then we're also going to see the rise of robotics. Digital twins are going to be huge. And so I think we're also going to see people having to re-educate themselves a little bit. They're going to have to, I'm not exactly sure what that looks like, but I believe that if you are not a data company within the next 2 years, you're out. You're out. Even if you're AEC, even if you consider yourself design, if you are not data, then and just overall, as it relates to talent, I mean, we've already been seeing a lot of people. I mean, people are just kind of disenfranchised by our current monopolistic system, and they're like, I mean, when I'm scrolling TikTok, every single time there's somebody complaining about their shitty company, and it's not in AEC because they're not on TikTok yet, but it's coming.
So if trust is holding back the talent revolution,
Mm.
that sounds like a good use for blockchain. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, no doubt.
Or talent and projects, right? Because it's so dependent on trusting other parties. So if you have a trustless mechanism
That's right.
for conducting projects.
That's right. Yes, 100%. So that is not originally how I thought of Idifico, but I think there's certainly, I mean, I've thought of it more from the benefit of the individuals who are participating, and wanting for them to like there's a little bit of me that has this like chip on my shoulder of, like, to give them what they're due. Like this talent who spends their entire lives building buildings, and then they don't all they get is like 150K a year, like, and maybe a retirement package and some insurance, like, okay. But yeah, absolutely. As so I think whoever creates that, whether it's Idifico and me or other people, whoever creates that, like 100% it's what's needed.
I just want to circle back to the token that these people receive. They're receiving like a piece of the project. Is that right?
Yeah, it's such a good question. So and the reason is because we have so many tokens, right? We have so many ways that we can utilize tokens. So in my head, what I see is that they both have a platform token, which would be Idifico, which gives them access to a tiny, tiny slice of ownership of the platform, in addition to voting rights. Like, this is a DAO, right? Like, they have voting rights. They get to decide kind of in what ways the platform moves and grows through blockchain votes. And so they would have that. And then they would also have a token associated with every project they work on, which gives them, in my head, like, there's many ways you can do it, but it would give them just access to the cash flow once the project flows in whatever way that looks like.
Right. There's a lot of money to be made there. And what impact do you think that has on accountability if these people are working on the projects, but then also have long-term gains from it?
Well, I guess when you say the word accountability, I'm not sure if this is going to answer your question or like where you're headed with this one, but I think there's accountability on both sides, right? Because the blockchain allows you to get paid for the work you did.
Mm-hmm.
And so as long as we've got the camera or we've got the documents or whatever, and it's all uploaded, we see that there's accountability on both sides, right? So the developer also is accountable to the individual. And then as far as, there has to be, we thought about this a lot. Nothing was ever implemented, but there has to be some kind of system that allows for feedback. And once that feedback, kind of goes through the system, then they would receive, the way we think of it now is some sort of grade or some way of saying like, yeah, they were excellent on the project. They were great to work with. And blockchain can solve that too, because we can give them, like, I think we're already doing this in education where, that we're going to start getting NFTs for our programs that we complete, right? And that's all going to just go onto LinkedIn or whatever platform we have when this becomes a reality. But we're not going to have resumes anymore. We're just going to have like, here's my stamp of approval that I did this thing and I did a good job at it, right? And so you could certainly like implement some kind of like accountability structure that's fair and make sure that it honors everyone involved, and that would just be a part of their platform identity.
Do you think that it would maybe produce better work for these projects? Because usually you get paid and you're done. But
Mm,
this way you get to share the fruits of your labor for the longevity of the
yeah,
property. And I think
absolutely.
that's a big opportunity.
100%. It gives, yeah, I mean, you have skin in the game now.
Yeah.
That's it. It's as easy as that. Like, and there's now that you're a part of the team, it's no longer this like when you're all at the table, it feels so much more equitable
Mm-hmm.
because it's not just, hey, we're the ones with the money, so we're in charge. It's like, no, like we all have, and I do believe that in general, the talent in AEC really wants to see projects come to fruition because that's at the end of the day, that's what they get to say, this was my life's work, is this building, right? Which is really, really meaningful for them. So I think most of them, but, there are certainly some who are just, like your architect friend who's like, fuck it. I just, I just want, like, I don't even want to have to do the end work of the project, like I don't want them reaching out to me because they actually saw it go through.
So next, I want to know about your TikTok journey. How
Mm.
has it been producing content for RWA blockchain, like, is it well received, or do people associate that with crypto right away?
Yeah. Thanks for asking this question. I think that it's starting to be more well received. I've been looking at, my data and my audience. My audience is, I think I'm at like 70% male, 45 plus, which is, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like this is an interesting topic for them. I definitely was seeing a lot of crypto bros in my comments at first, and which I'm fine with. I'm a crypto bro. I mean, I really am. Like, I listen to Bankless at 10 o'clock at night while playing Candy Crush. Okay, so like, I'm like in, but I also like realize how important it is to be delivering information that isn't just like a pump and dump, I mean, like that, like it bugs me, frankly, that blockchain, my like beloved technology, is associated with that, right? And so the journey on TikTok, like I've been doing this, I post daily for 6 months. And in the beginning, I was doing 4 times daily, and now I'm down to 2 times daily because, like, what I'm telling people is like important shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like, I mean, my integrity is on the line, and I work in commercial real estate. And so I still am like a human doing human things in an industry that humans. And actually, I will admit that it is really kind of challenging to bridge these two technology or these two industries because the cultures of them are so different, right? I mean, like both of them like run by bros, and just the daily like making this content. Like after this, I will spend the rest of the day putting together my scripts and recording so that I have enough videos to get me through till Monday. And so I can sort of enjoy my weekend, although I'll be working Saturday. So yeah, it's definitely been a journey, but I know we don't have much time, so you said you have one other question?
Yes, I do have one more question, and then we'll go into CTA because I want people to reach out to you.
Thank you.
What what do you think is like the minimum literacy that CRE folks need to have? We've got a lot of real estate folks who listen in. What do you think is the baseline? What should they start to familiarize themselves with and understand to prepare for the coming years?
Yeah, they need to understand what a smart contract is. I think at the end of the day, that is the thing, that is the technology that is going to shift literally everything when they start to understand what it does and how it affects their job. And it is going to affect every single individual's job in the industry in some capacity. That I think is the simplest way to put it.
Easy enough. Smart
Yeah.
contracts.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, how should people get in touch with you?
Thank you. So I'm actually building a few things under the decentralized everything umbrella. So I have a network that I'm building. So if you are interested in having weekly conversations about this bridge between kind of these technologies, mostly tokenization, but also some AI, because it obviously can't be ignored. And then CRE, if that's of interest to you, I do a weekly meeting on Wednesdays from noon to 12:45 PST. I also have classes available on my Stand store. So if people really want to understand what a smart contract is, I have several classes that you can tune into. I made one for realtors too, because I noticed I have a lot of realtors who follow me on TikTok. Definitely not my expertise, but I've been licensed, and so I understand that basically, and wanted to help them too. And then I will say I do not love crypto Twitter. And so I'm there, but I'm under gray jammies. If people want to follow me, they can. I think I might have an iDifico account too, actually. But then most of my work is on TikTok, and I'm mandy.real.estate. And then you can also find me on LinkedIn at Mandy McGill.
I think we'll have links. Yes, I do have links to your
Super.
TikTok and your
Yes.
LinkedIn
Thank
and
you.
your Stand store. The decentralized everything. What's how do people find that?
So that's like just the brand, that kind of the
Okay.
brand umbrella. And so I haven't built a website. I'm still debating if I want to. So yeah, it's more just like the brand umbrella that everything sits under.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool, cool. Well, we got to cover a lot today, from construction and land registries to talent, which is really cool because the talent scene is definitely changing. You've got
Hmm.
the generational changes. Then, of course, post-COVID, things are virtual. You add in Web3 and trustless interactions between people and artificial intelligence. That's the real kicker. Things
Truly.
things are changing. So we have to rethink how we conduct business with one another, and then also how we are rewarded for the business or the work that we
Hmm.
do.
That's right.
And that's why I think that idea of people receiving tokens as stakes in the projects
Hmm.
so that they have this long-term incentive or skin in the game, as you said,
Yeah.
is really cool.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for walking us through all that today. Your links are in the show notes so people can reach out to you. And I'm looking forward to seeing how things transpire in the next 12 months. We've got 2026 ahead.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me and letting me. It really is a lot of fun talking to people who understand and get it. So I really appreciate it. Thanks so much. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. All right. Take care.
You too.